So I needed a new project, and this project was a permanent place to charge my car, which is here, and then that's the charging station that I built here. So this video is all about, how I did this. Not so much the gazebo, because I did that off camera, but it's more like how to get power and then, all the cabling and everything that it needed to get this one functioning. So what we have here is we have a small junction box which houses the GFCI or the RCD for the charging equipment. I have a single phase energy meter, which is this one, and I have my ESP project which converts that information and sends it over to MQTT so I can monitor the charging. I have a plug for the charger. I have this media charger that I purchased on AliExpress, and the reason I bought this because I can control the charging current from 6 to 16 amps selectively, so I can set it here instead of setting it in a car. And I also have this 3D printed dock for the Type 2 charger, and then it's charging the car. Well, not now, but it is plugged in, but it's finished charging overnight. So let's roll back a couple of days and let's see how this all got started. I think it is time to work on some new projects because my electric car is here, but I'm charging it from this charger and the extension lead, which is snaking through here and then into the garage, which is definitely not good. But that's not really a problem because I already thought about the solution. So I have, well, that's my neighbor's fence, and I have this temporary structure there where I need to get the power to, so I can install all the charging equipment there. And I think that also, well, that could be somewhat temporary solution because I'm thinking that maybe I should build a carport, and once I have the carport, then obviously I can reposition all the charging equipment. But this is why I fixed that one to the fence, let's say temporarily, and we will see how temporary that will be. So that's how it looks like at the moment, and I have all the property line and I have some conduits there, so I need to dig a trench for some conduit, and I can just get cables from my distribution box, which is over there in the where I have the bins and everything. So most of it is already well, not cabled, but I have the conduits in the ground. So I need to finish this last piece here all the way to, where is this guy? Here. So I can install the charging equipment. And just a few more words about this whole trenching and everything. So I have very little space here because basically, especially right at the far end, I think probably I have about like 20 centimeters, like, I don't know, 10 inches, 8 inches of space between the foundations of the fence and the driveway, which has these paving stones and, edging, and then the edge also has some concrete foundation. And I couldn't really dig really deep, mostly because even my shovel wouldn't fit. And not to mention that we had like overnight frost for the last 1.5 weeks, so that didn't help me, dig this trench either. But yeah, I managed to power through. Especially it was somewhat easier at the end because then I had a little more space, but then I just had to dig deeper as well. And sometimes I found some concrete at the end. So the depth of these cables or the conduit is like just from a couple of centimeters to maybe 20 centimeters. So this is definitely not like, like a proper trench with, I don't know, 0.5 meter depth. But I don't expect anything else to be done in this area. So those should be, safe to be just in a, under the shallow earth. I just finished with the trench. It's not deep, it's not nice. It has to do. I'm almost dying, so I think I need to get some coffee and then lay the pipes and well, lay the conduit and then bury this one because yeah, it's getting ugly. So after some coffee and a fresh set of clothes, I'm ready to roll the conduit for the second time. And I should hurry because I don't have any floodlights and it's getting dark soon. And none of my video equipment is particularly good at night. I'm using a fairly thin, this plastic conduit, which is only 16 mil. Again, this is something that I had at home. I could have used, bigger cables as well, or maybe I should have, especially that I'm only going to pull in 3 wires for a single phase. And if I would need 3 phases in the future, at least I have another conduit. So you will see I'm basically pulling in 2 conduits and I'm using one of them. So I still have one more for any future expansion or anything that I need in the future. So yeah, and next I was just trying to plan how all these boxes are going to be laid out. So I have an external junction box that's going to house all the the RCD and the MCBs and the energy meter and the ESP and the small DIN mounted power supply for the ESP. And so that's going to be in a waterproof box. That's where the conduits are going to go in. And then I just have a normal EU plug where the charger is going to plug into, and I have this 3D printed thing which is just going to hold the Type 2 plug. So that's all there is needed. I mean, this board, this is a cement board, it is fairly big, but I made it big because I wanted the whole thing to be tall enough so I don't have to, get down in order to get the charger. But I wanted to fasten it to the fence, and the fence only goes to sort of like a waist height in this place. So I wanted a lot of space in the fence so it will hold this whole board rigidly, and of course I wanted to come up sort of like, I don't know, head height or something like that. So that's why it's a short thing, and pretty much everything is going to be on the top, which will be covered by the small roof that I put on top. And in one of the evening, I was putting all the box together in the garage. So I'm using this external rated junction box, and I was cutting holes for these big cable glands where the conduit is going to go straight in, and it's just going to wrap around the conduit. By the way, these conduits are not UV stabilized, so I would need to protect them with some sort of other cable conduit, something that I'm probably going to just put on it. And again, I should have just planned this whole thing a lot more in advance, because I went to the hardware store where I usually buy all electrical supplies, and they didn't have the type of conduit where this should fit into. So anyway, I would do it retrospectively. But at least I wanted this orange conduit to be, held firmly, so there is no, water ingress. So I was using these cable glands, and then I was using the, the rest of the MCBs and RCDs to put everything into. And for the main, power supply, I'm using 2.5 square millimeters cables, which is 14 AWG. And so that should be able to handle 16 amps without any issues. And then for the smaller wires, like supplying the 5-volt power supply, I'm just using 1.5 square mil, which is like 16 AWG. And all of the cables I had, I was using multi-core, because I thought it would be much easier to get them into the relatively small conduit. And I was using wire ferrules at the end of each cable. And it just took me a long time, because I don't usually assemble these boxes, so I just wanted to go slow and make sure that I have everything connected correctly. I'm clamping everything down, because after all, it's 16 amps. Okay, so a few days has passed, and I'm trying to continue with this one. So that is installed. I've mounted most of the, I drilled the hole for most of the things, and you can see the conduit cable there as well. So that's looking good. And now what I'm trying to do is run the electrical line through all the way from the, what is it? It's the bin where I have the meters as well. So along the fence, which is down there, and then through the trench and the conduit that I just dig a couple of days ago. So this part of the garden was sort of remodeled last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I had really old fences and gates and everything, so they got replaced. And I was suspecting that I would need to lay cables in the future. So I had these junction boxes in various places, and I was running conduit in between them for most of the places. And I placed these junction boxes sort of like every 10-15 meters, because I thought if I would have longer ones, then maybe I would struggle to get the cables in. So This is why it took a little bit more time, because then I had to get through the cables through the first section and then get some more cables and then feed it into the second section, and if I needed more cables again, get more fuel for the first section and the second section, and of course finally the third section, which goes all the way to the charging point. And that last section was just probably like 10 centimeters shorter than this wire guide that I used to pull the cables in. So I was really lucky, because otherwise it would, I don't know what I would, of course I would have delayed the project and gone back to the store to get a longer guide cable, but I managed to get this one in. So I think I finished sort of like in an hour and a half. And you can see there are 3 different cores that I used here. Again, I was thinking that if I use 3 different wires for the phase neutral and protective earth, it would be easier to pull them through rather than a multi-core cable with a double sleeving. So, but it worked at the end. So this is all in. I literally had like, I don't know, like 10 centimeters from the cable to reach from the other end to here. Otherwise it wouldn't have worked. So okay, I need to do, well, obviously all the wiring here, but I think I'm going to do that tomorrow. And also I need to connect on the other side, just below the meter. So yeah, that's going to be interesting as well. Oh, and by the way, I have the junction box completed yesterday as well. So that's the RCD and RCD? Yeah, that's the RCD, and that's just a simple breaker. That's the energy meter. This is the 5-volt supply for the ESP, and I couldn't really figure out any other way to protect the ESP than to put it into a large heat shrink. And of course, the PCB is also conformal coated. And yeah, and this wire is only for testing. Obviously the 2 conduits will come in through here, and that's which goes to the plug for the EVSE. And here I was just finishing the installation. I had to just unclip most of these modules from the DIN rail because the screw mount was behind them, so I couldn't get through it. And by the way, I mentioned that I use this really big heat shrink for the ESP, not really to protect it from the cables, but like, you know, just give it a physical protection against, well, against something that would you know, get into the cable box, maybe other wires or something. Anyway, I thought at least I can do that much. And I bought these plastic DIN rail mounting clips that I just epoxied to the back of the heat shrink, and that's how I clip the ESP onto the DIN rails. So everything is mounted, nothing is really loose. Maybe, I don't know, some cables that I could have clipped to be shorter, but I left them a little bit longer. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for today, and there is no project without some sort of Node-RED. Well, especially it has MQTT, so there has to be something in Node-RED and Influx and Grafana. So all of these will be covered in follow-up videos. But that will be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next video.